Madam Speaker, I move to concur in SJR 1.
Chairman Cassidy moves to concur in SJR 1. Any discussion? Representative Stewart, you're recognized.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Sponsor yields.
We just heard this resolution. I'm just curious. It's a pretty simple resolution, right? What does it do?
This will go to the voters on the gubernatorial election of 2014, and it will ask them a question on clarifying and making it even more clear that the income tax is unconstitutional.
Here's my question. Do you recall about 10 years ago in the early 2000s that there was an effort to create an income tax in the state of Tennessee led by the governor of Tennessee?
And the Speaker of the House, I sure do.
And that was Governor Sundquist, right? He was a governor. He led the people of the state. He led a statewide effort to try to create an income tax. Is that right?
I would say the statewide would be incorrect, but a lot of members from the minority party supported this, yes.
Supported Governor Sundquist's effort.
That is correct.
And the reason I say that, do you agree with me? I recall that Governor Sundquist felt the reason that he was pushing an income tax was because he felt like our business and sales taxes had reached essentially a peak, and he wanted to be able to have he wanted to be able to ensure that we didn't have to raise business taxes or sales taxes. Is that right?
You know, I remember Speaker Nafee being very articulate on this piece and I disagreed with him, but that's what we're a deliberative body and we debate those things.
And you see my point. I mean, the point is, it's not been 12 years, 13 years since the Republican governor of the state tried to lead the state toward a state income tax. We can debate whether that was the right policy or not the right policy. I certainly don't feel a lot of demand in my own district for an income tax right now. The reason I think this is going the wrong direction, this amendment, is simply because we haven't been, here we are amending the Constitution in a way that it hasn't been amended since we founded the state, or since 1870, I guess. And, you know, we haven't been 2 decades since one governor of our state felt that we should restructure our tax system. Why do we want to take this out of the democratic process? Why do we want to make this a constitutional issue instead of just allowing the elected representatives of the people to make this decision year after year?
Well, and I strongly disagreed with Speaker Nafee when he pushed this income tax concept. You and I just have a fundamental disagreement. I think taxing earned income is a terrible public policy. It runs off business, and it's a disincentive to produce. So we just disagree, and we'll both vote accordingly.
I understand, but I think it goes to a different policy, sir. I don't think it's really whether or not you support the underlying policy of a state income tax or not, but really whether you think this is something that's best left always to the democratically elected representatives of the people. Again, I wasn't in Don Sundquist's cabinet. I don't know why that governor chose to lead the fight for an income tax, but it seems to me if a governor within the last 15 years felt like that was the right policy, at least it's in the solar system of policies that should be open to consideration by a governor. I'd finally say as a policy matter, it's possible that I won't convince a whole bunch of people to vote against this, but the fact of the matter is we're at 10% when it comes to sales tax, virtually. It's the highest sales tax in the nation. It's a huge burden on the people of our state. We should be proud that we have a low-tax state. Some states have high income taxes and high sales taxes. Obviously, that's not where we want to be either. But I think by eliminating this level of flexibility, we're going down the wrong road. I think ultimately, probably the poorest among us will pay for the inflexibility that we're putting in our tax system today. I'll be voting against your resolution, but thank you for answering my questions.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sponsor yield.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you, Representative Castor. As I try to understand the amendment amending the Constitution of our state, which some would consider a sacred document, something that you don't necessarily tamper with, you don't necessarily play politics with, because it's a sacred document.
agree.
Once you change it, it's very, very, very difficult to change it again.
It's true.
And as Representative Stewart, my colleague, in some of his comments, and when the bill was going through the committee process, it came through our committee, and I posed a question to you, and for the record, would you support a constitutional amendment to prohibit a sales tax in the state?
Well, Representative, I would love to have this debate, but this is not relative to what we're having here, and I think the Speaker will quickly call you and I both out of order.
Well, let the Speaker do what the Speaker do, and you do what you do, because you're not the Speaker.
That's correct. But again, you're asking me to discuss something that this bill and what's before the body has nothing to do with. You want to talk about a constitutional question, which we've already done once this session on judges, I may add. So this body has already supported changing the Constitution, or at least bringing that question to the people. But again, we're off topic, Representative, when we talk about theoretical things on the sales tax and other taxes. We should only talk about the income tax. This is what this deals with.
Representative, I respectfully disagree with you. We're talking about taxes. We're talking about amending the Constitution of this state. And that's why in my earlier comments I said this is a very sacred document. And you agree with that?
I do agree.
This is something you don't tamper with. We don't take this lightly.
Not lightly, correct. Not lightly.
We shouldn't.
Correct.
So we're talking about taxes here. Because if, in fact, assuming that this pass, and it goes before the voters and it passed, what it will say is simply this: we are predicting our revenue, our economic situation in the next 5, 10, 15, 25, the next 50 years. Once we tamper with that Constitution, it could take another 50 years before we realize the mistake we've made. Do you agree with that?
Number one, the mistake is having an income tax. That is the mistake. Banning it constitutionally is the right thing to go. And if you disagree, vote against this and vote for the income tax.
Yes, sir.
I would urge that.
I will do that. Thank you. And I go back to my question, and I'll be finished with this, Mr. Speaker. For the record, could you support the prohibition of the Constitutional Amendment doing away with a sales tax?
Representative, we're only talking about the income tax. We're off subject. I don't know why you persist. I think we should.
It's just a simple answer, yes or no.
Why would I answer? Why would I discuss something that has nothing to do with what's before us?
We do it all the time here.
Are you for the income tax?
No, I'm not. Are you for a sales tax?
Representative Miller, I believe he's answered your question.
Thank you, Madam
Representative Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman Casta, but basically all we're doing here today is giving the people the vote, the choice, if they want the Constitution amended, or if they don't want a state income tax. So
yes,
only thing we're doing today is voting to give our constituents that choice.
Well said, sir.
Representative Todd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll move previous question.
Previous question has been called for. Is there objection? There is objection. We're on the board. Those in favor of the previous question vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Aye, 64, nays, 25.
Previous question prevails. After being read 3 times on 3 separate days, Senate Joint Resolution, I'm sorry, at this point we take the vote. All those in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does every member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Ayes 88, nays, 1 present not voting.
After being read 3 times on 3 separate days, Senate Joint Resolution 1, having received a vote in the affirmative by over 2/3 majority, the members of the Tennessee House of Representatives of the 108th General Assembly, I hereby declare concurred in pursuant to Article 11, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is tabled.